Jealous stepmother kills her husband's daughter in a fit of rage in the heart of New York City, where dreams are born and shattered with equal measure. A chilling tale unfolded that would send shockwaves through the city's veins and beyond. On a crisp autumn morning, as the city stirred to life, a discovery was made that would forever alter the lives of those involved and leave an indelible mark on the collective conscience of a community. Emily Bradshaw, a vibrant 16-year-old with eyes that sparkled like the city lights and dreams as tall as the skyscrapers that surrounded her, was found lifeless in her bedroom. The Upper East Side penthouse, once a symbol of success and familial bliss, became the epicenter of a nightmare that would unravel the very fabric of a family's existence. As the sun rose over the Manhattan skyline, casting long shadows across the city streets, Detective Sarah Chin received the call that would define her career. The details were sparse, but the gravity of the situation was clear. A teenage girl from one of the city's most prominent families, dead under suspicious circumstances. Chen's instincts, honed over years of working the city's toughest cases, told her this was no ordinary tragedy. Arriving at the Bradshaw residence, Chun was struck by the opulence that surrounded her. The penthouse, with its panoramic views of Central Park, spoke of a life of privilege and comfort. But as she stepped into Emily's room, the stark contrast between the luxury outside and the horror within became painfully apparent. Emily lay on her bed, her golden hair spread out on the pillow like a halo. Her face, usually animated with laughter and life, was now eerily still. The room, meticulously decorated with artwork and trophies showcasing Emily's many talents, now stood as a silent witness to an unspeakable crime. As Chun began her investigation, piecing together the final moments of Emily's life, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The crime scene was too clean, too perfect. It lacked the chaos typically associated with a violent act. This level of precision spoke of premeditation, of a killer who had taken great pains to cover their tracks. To understand the tragedy that had befallen Emily Bradshaw, one must rewind the clock 3 years, to a time when hope and new beginnings seemed to be on the horizon for the Bradshaw family. Thomas Bradshaw, a widowed investment banker with a reputation for having the Midas touch, had been navigating the choppy waters of single parenthood for 5 years. The loss of his wife, Sarah, to cancer had left him adrift, anchored only by his unwavering love for their daughter, Emily. Despite his success in the boardroom, Thomas struggled to fill the void left by Sarah's passing, both in his life and in Emily's. Enter Vanessa Reeves, a rising star in the New York art scene. 20 years Thomas's junior, Vanessa exuded a magnetism that drew people to her like moths to a flame. Their chance meeting at a charity gala sparked a whirlwind romance that became the talk of the town. To the outside world, it seemed that Thomas Bradshaw had finally found his second chance at happiness. The wedding, held in the Hamptons, was an affair to remember. The creme de la creme of New York society gathered to witness the union of Thomas and Vanessa. Emily, then 13, stood by her father's side, a brave smile masking the tumult of emotions within. As Vanessa walked down the aisle, resplendent in a designer gown, whispers rippled through the congregation. Some spoke of love's triumph over tragedy, while others speculated on less noble motivations behind the match. For Emily, the day was a blur of conflicting feelings. She wanted her father to be happy, to see him smile again as he had when her mother was alive. Yet, as she watched Vanessa take her place beside her father, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental was shifting in her world. The early days of their new family life seemed promising. Vanessa made efforts to bond with Emily, arranging shopping trips and art gallery visits. She spoke of being a friend rather than trying to replace Emily's mother, a sentiment that initially eased some of Emily's apprehensions. However, as weeks turned into months, subtle changes began to manifest in the dynamics of the Bradshaw household. Vanessa's attention, once lavished on both Thomas and Emily, began to focus solely on her husband. Family dinners, once a time for laughter and sharing, became tense affairs punctuated by long silences and meaningful glances between the adults. Emily, perceptive beyond her years, noticed a shift in atmosphere. She confided in her best friend, Sophia, during hushed conversations at school. "It's like I've become invisible in my own home," Emily whispered, her voice tight with emotion. "Dad's always at work, and when he is home, Vanessa monopolizes his attention. I feel like an intruder in my own family." As Emily navigated the treacherous waters of adolescence, her relationship with her stepmother continued to deteriorate. Vanessa's comments, once cloaked in the guise of helpful advice, took on a sharper edge. She critiqued Emily's choice of friends, her study habits, even the way she dressed. "If you put half as much effort into your appearance as you do your schoolwork, you might actually make some friends," Vanessa once remarked over breakfast, her tone dripping with false sweetness. Thomas, caught between his love for his daughter and his desire to make his new marriage work, often found himself playing the role of mediator. "She's just trying to help, sweetheart," he would say to Emily, his eyes pleading for understanding. "Vanessa wants what's best for you." But Emily knew better. She saw the flashes of resentment in Vanessa's eyes when Thomas praised her achievements. She felt the chill in the air when she and her father shared private jokes or reminisced about her mother. It became increasingly clear that in Vanessa's mind, there was only room for one woman in Thomas Bradshaw's life. Despite the growing tension at home, Emily found solace in her passions. An gifted artist like her late mother, she threw herself into her work with renewed vigor. Her talent blossomed, earning her accolades from teachers and peers alike. Each success, however, seemed to drive a deeper wedge between her and her stepmother. The situation came to a head during Emily's sophomore year of high school. She had been selected to represent her school in a prestigious citywide art competition, an honor that filled her with equal parts excitement and trepidation. The theme of the competition was family, a subject that stirred complex emotions in Emily's heart. For weeks, Emily worked tirelessly on her piece, pouring her feelings of lost love and longing onto the canvas. The result was a hauntingly beautiful triptych that depicted the evolution of her family. The first panel showed Emily as a young child, nestled between her parents, their faces radiant with joy. The second portrayed the darkness that descended with her mother's illness and passing. The final panel was the most poignant. It showed Emily and her father, a faint outline of her mother watching over them, with Vanessa as a shadowy figure in the background, her features indistinct and unsettling. The night before the competition, Emily unveiled her work to her family. Thomas was moved to tears, recognizing the depth of emotion his daughter had captured. Vanessa, however, stood silent, her face an unreadable mask. As Emily explained the symbolism behind her work, Vanessa's composure cracked. "How dare you?" she hissed, her eyes flashing with anger. "After everything I've done for this family, this is how you see me? As some kind of intruder?" The argument that ensued was explosive. Vanessa accused Emily of being ungrateful, of deliberately trying to drive a wedge between her and Thomas. Emily, hurt and angry, shot back that Vanessa had never truly accepted her as part of the family. Thomas, stunned by the vehemence of their clash, struggled to keep the peace. In the end, it was Emily who broke the stalemate. Gathering her artwork, she announced her intention to stay with Sophia for the night. As she left the penthouse, the silence behind her was deafening. The next day, Emily's triptych won first place in the competition. The judges praised her technical skill and the emotional depth of her work. As she stood on the stage, accepting her gold medal, Emily searched the audience for her father's face. She found him in the back, pride shining in his eyes. Vanessa was notably absent. Returning home that evening, her gold medal tucked safely in her bag, Emily felt a mix of triumph and trepidation. The penthouse was quiet as she entered, the kind of silence that seems to hold its breath in anticipation. She called out, receiving no response. Assuming she was alone, Emily made her way to her room, her footsteps echoing in the empty space. As she pushed open her bedroom door, Emily was startled to find Vanessa waiting for her. Her stepmother sat perched on the edge of the bed, her posture rigid, her eyes fixed on the door. "Congratulations," Vanessa said, her voice devoid of warmth. I suppose you think this proves something. Emily, caught off guard, struggled to find her voice. It's not about proving anything, she managed. It's just my art, my feelings. Vanessa stood, moving closer to Emily with a fluidity that seemed almost predatory. Your feelings, she repeated, her tone mocking. And what about my feelings, Emily? Did you ever stop to consider how your little masterpiece makes me look? How it makes your father feel? The tension in the room was palpable, a living thing that seemed to pulse between them. Emily took a step back, her hand clutching the strap of her bag. Dad understood, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. He saw what I was trying to express. Oh, I'm sure he did, Vanessa sneered. Poor Thomas, always torn between his precious daughter and his wife. Do you have any idea what you've done to this family? How hard I've tried to make this work? Emily felt her back hit the wall, realizing with a jolt of fear that Vanessa had been steadily advancing on her. I haven't done anything, she protested. I've tried to accept you, to make room for you in our lives. But you've never really wanted me here, have you? Something shifted in Vanessa's eyes then, a flash of raw emotion that sent a chill down Emily's spine. You're right, Vanessa said, her voice barely above a whisper. I never wanted you here. You've been a thorn in my side from the moment I married your father. Always there. A constant reminder of his past, of the woman who came before me. Emily's heart raced, her mind scrambling to make sense of the situation. She had known things were bad, but this level of hostility, of hatred, was beyond anything she had imagined. Vanessa, she began, hoping to reason with her stepmother, to find some way to defuse the situation. But Vanessa was beyond reason. In one fluid motion, she grabbed the heavy crystal vase from Emily's dresser, a wedding gift that had always seemed out of place in the teenager's room. You've ruined everything, Vanessa snarled, raising the vase above her head. Emily's scream was cut short as the vase connected with her temple. The world exploded into a burst of pain and light, and then darkness claimed her. When Emily regained consciousness, she found herself lying on her bed, her head throbbing with each heartbeat. Vanessa loomed over her, her face a mask of cold determination. Why? Emily managed to croak, tasting blood in her mouth. Because you're in the way, Vanessa replied, her voice eerily calm. You've always been in the way. Thomas can never fully be mine as long as you're around. A constant reminder of his perfect first wife, his perfect little family. As Emily struggled to move, to call for help, Vanessa pressed a pillow over her face. Shoo, she murmured almost tenderly. It'll be over soon. And then, finally, I'll have the life I deserve. Emily fought with every ounce of strength she possessed, her lungs burning as she struggled for air. But Vanessa's grip was relentless, fueled by years of pent-up resentment and jealousy. As the edges of her vision began to darken, Emily's thoughts turned to her father, to the pain he would endure when he discovered what had happened. Her last conscious thought was a fervent hope that somehow, someway, the truth would come to light. And then, silence fell over the Bradshaw penthouse. In the aftermath of Emily's death, Vanessa's performance was Oscar-worthy. She played the role of the grieving stepmother to perfection, her eyes brimming with tears as she recounted to the police how she had found Emily's body upon returning from a charity event. Thomas, devastated by the loss of his only child, clung to Vanessa like a drowning man to a life raft. But Detective Sarachin was not so easily fooled. As she delved deeper into the case, inconsistencies in Vanessa's story began to emerge. The timeline didn't quite add up, and there were small details that nagged at Chen's instincts. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Sophia, Emily's best friend, came forward with Emily's journal. Hidden in a secret compartment of her desk, the journal painted a vivid picture of a deteriorating relationship between Emily and her stepmother. Page after page detailed Vanessa's passive-aggressive comments, her attempts to isolate Emily from her father, and the growing fear Emily felt in her own home. Armed with this new information, Chen began to build her case. She re-interviewed the Bradshaw's neighbors, uncovering reports of raised voices and arguments in the weeks leading up to Emily's death. A doorman recalled seeing Vanessa return to the building on the night of the murder, hours before she claimed to have discovered the body. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when security footage from a nearby building captured Vanessa disposing of a bag in a dumpster miles from their home. Inside, investigators found the murder weapon still stained with Emily's blood. Confronted with the mounting evidence, Vanessa's carefully constructed facade crumbled. In a moment of rage and desperation, she confessed, spilling out years of resentment and jealousy. She spoke of feeling constantly overshadowed by the memory of Thomas's first wife, of her inability to compete with the bond between father and daughter. The trial that followed was a media sensation. New York's elite turned out in force, their morbid curiosity piqued by the tale of jealousy and murder in their midst. Thomas Bradshaw sat in the courtroom day after day, a broken man struggling to reconcile the woman he thought he knew with the monster revealed in court. As the prosecution presented their case, painting a damning picture of Vanessa's actions and motivations, the city held its collective breath. Emily's artwork, including the award-winning triptych that had inadvertently set the tragic events in motion, was displayed for the jury. The poignancy of her final piece, which so clearly illustrated the fractured dynamics of her family, was not lost on anyone in the courtroom. In the end, the jury took less than a day to reach their verdict. Vanessa Bradshaw was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As the judge read out the sentence, a palpable sense of relief washed over the courtroom. Justice for Emily had been served, but the cost had been unimaginably high. In the months that followed, Thomas Bradshaw struggled to rebuild his life in the wake of unimaginable loss. The penthouse, once a symbol of his success and happiness, now stood as a mausoleum to shattered dreams. Unable to bear the memories that haunted every room, he sold the property and moved out of the city. Determined that some good should come from the tragedy, Thomas established the Emily Bradshaw Foundation, dedicated to supporting young artists and raising awareness about domestic abuse in blended families. Emily's artwork, which had brought her both joy and ultimately contributed to her untimely death, became the cornerstone of the Foundation's message. The case of Emily Bradshaw served as a wake-up call for many. It shed light on the often overlooked dynamics of blended families and the potential for jealousy and resentment to fester beneath the surface of seemingly perfect lives. Social workers and family therapists pointed to the case as a stark reminder of the importance of open communication and professional support in navigating the complexities of remarriage and step-parenting. For Detective Sarah Chun, the Bradshaw case marked a turning point in her career. Her tenacity in pursuing the truth, even when it led to uncomfortable places, earned her a promotion and a reputation as one of the NYPD's top homicide detectives. But more than that, it left her with a renewed sense of purpose, a commitment to giving voice to those who could no longer speak for themselves. Sophia, still grappling with the loss of her best friend, found solace in keeping Emily's memory alive. She organized an annual art show at their high school, featuring works that explored themes of family, loss, and resilience. The Emily Bradshaw Memorial Scholarship, funded by Thomas, ensured that talented young artists would have the opportunity to pursue their dreams, just as Emily had. As years passed, the Bradshaw case faded from the headlines, but its impact lingered in the collective consciousness of the city. It became a cautionary tale, a reminder that appearances can be deceiving and that the greatest dangers sometimes lurk within the sanctuary of our own homes. For Thomas Bradshaw, the journey to healing was long and arduous. The guilt of not having seen the signs, of having brought Vanessa into their lives, weighed heavily on his conscience. Sleepless nights were spent poring over old photographs, searching for clues he might have missed, moments when he could have changed the course of events. In his darkest hours, Thomas found himself drawn to the places that held memories of Emily. He would walk through Central Park, remembering weekend picnics and bicycle rides. He'd visit the Metropolitan Museum of Art, where Emily had first fallen in love with painting. Each location held bittersweet memories, echoes of laughter, and shared dreams that now seemed to belong to another lifetime. It was during one of these solitary pilgrimages that Thomas encountered Dr. Amelia Rodriguez, a child psychologist who specialized in helping families navigate the complexities of blended households. Their chance meeting occurred on a crisp autumn day, eerily similar to the one when Emily's life had been so cruelly taken. Thomas had been sitting on a bench in Central Park, lost in thought, when a gust of wind sent a sheaf of papers flying from the hands of a woman passing by. Without thinking, he jumped up to help her gather the scattered documents. As they crouched together, snatching papers from the air and ground, Thomas found himself looking into a pair of kind, intelligent eyes. "Thank you," the woman said, her voice warm with gratitude. "I should know better than to carry loose papers in this weather." Thomas managed a small smile, the first across his face in what felt like ages. "It's no trouble," he replied. "I'm Thomas." "Amelia," she responded, tucking the rescued papers into her bag. "Amelia Rodriguez. I was just heading to grab a coffee before my next appointment. Would you like to join me? It's the least I can do to thank you for your help." Under normal circumstances, Thomas would have politely declined. He had become accustomed to his solitude, finding a strange comfort in the isolation that had enveloped him since Emily's death. But something about Dr. Rodriguez's gentle demeanor and the serendipity of their meeting made him pause. "You know what? I think I will," he said, surprising himself. As they walked to a nearby cafe, Amelia spoke about her work as a child psychologist, her passion for helping families evident in every word. Thomas found himself drawn into the conversation, his natural reticence falling away as they discussed the challenges facing modern families. Over steaming cups of coffee, their conversation deepened. Thomas found himself opening up about Emily, about the tragedy that had shattered his world. Dr. Rodriguez listened with rapt attention, her professional insight tempered by genuine empathy. "I'm so sorry for your loss, Thomas," she said softly when he had finished speaking. "What happened to Emily is truly heartbreaking, but I want you to know that by sharing your story, you're already taking the first steps towards healing, not just for yourself, but potentially for others who might be facing similar challenges." Thomas looked at her quizzically. "What do you mean?" Dr. Rodriguez leaned forward, her eyes alight with purpose. "Your experience, as painful as it is, holds valuable lessons. Lessons about communication, about recognizing the signs of discord in blended families, about the importance of professional support during major life transitions. Have you ever considered using your story to help others?" The idea had never occurred to Thomas. He had been so consumed by his grief, so focused on his own pain, that he hadn't considered the broader implications of his family's tragedy. But as Dr. Rodriguez spoke, outlining the ways in which his experience could be transformed into a force for good, Thomas felt a spark of something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. That chance encounter in Central Park marked the beginning of a transformative journey for Thomas Bradshaw. Over the following weeks and months, he and Dr. Rodriguez met regularly, their conversations evolving from casual coffee dates to serious strategy sessions. With Dr. Rodriguez's guidance, Thomas began to expand the scope of the Emily Bradshaw Foundation. What had started as a simple scholarship fund for young artists grew into a comprehensive support system for blended families. They developed workshops on communication and conflict resolution, created support groups for step-parents and stepchildren, and established a hotline for families in crisis. As the foundation's work gained momentum, Thomas found himself sharing his story more and more. At first, speaking about Emily and the circumstances of her death was excruciatingly painful. Each retelling felt like ripping open a wound that had barely begun to heal. But with time and practice, Thomas discovered that sharing his experience had a cathartic effect. It allowed him to process his grief in new ways, to find meaning in the senseless tragedy that had befallen his family. One of the most impactful initiatives to emerge from Thomas and Dr. Rodriguez's collaboration was the Emily's Light program. This intensive weekend retreat brought together blended families from all walks of life, providing them with tools and strategies to build stronger, healthier relationships. The first Emily's Light retreat was held at a serene lakeside lodge just outside the city. As families began to arrive, Thomas felt a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. He wondered if he was truly ready to face the raw emotions that would inevitably surface during the weekend. Among the first to arrive were the Johnsons, Mark, a widower with 2 teenage sons, his new wife Sarah, and her young daughter Lily. The tension between them was palpable as they checked in, the boys sullenly dragging their bags while Lily clung to her mother's hand, eyeing her stepbrothers warily. As Thomas welcomed them, he saw in Mark's tired eyes a reflection of his own struggles. Here was a man trying his best to hold a fractured family together, navigating the treacherous waters of grief, new love, and blended family dynamics. Throughout the weekend, Thomas worked closely with Dr. Rodriguez and a team of family therapists to guide the participants through a series of workshops and activities. They tackled tough topics head-on: jealousy, resentment, the challenge of honoring past relationships while building new ones. One session that particularly struck a chord with many participants focused on the importance of creating new family traditions while respecting old ones. Thomas shared how he and Emily had struggled to find this balance with Vanessa, how their failure to address these issues had contributed to the growing tension in their home. "We thought we were protecting each other by avoiding difficult conversations," Thomas explained to the group. "Emily didn't want to hurt me by expressing her discomfort with Vanessa, and I was so afraid of disrupting our newfound stability that I ignored the warning signs. But that silence came at a terrible cost." As he spoke, Thomas noticed Mark Johnson nodding, a look of recognition crossing his face. Later, during a break, Mark approached Thomas. "I never realized how much pressure I was putting on my boys to accept Sarah and Lily," Mark confessed. "I've been so focused on making this new relationship work that I haven't really given them space to grieve their mother or adjust to our new reality. Listening to you today, it's been a wake-up call." Moments like these reinforced Thomas's belief in the importance of the Foundation's work. Each family that found hope, each relationship that was strengthened, felt like a small victory against the darkness that had claimed Emily. As the retreat progressed, Thomas witnessed remarkable transformations. The Johnson boys, initially withdrawn and resentful, began to open up during family therapy sessions. By the end of the weekend, they were teaching little Lily how to skip stones across the lake, their shared laughter a balm to their parents' worried hearts. Other families experienced similar breakthroughs. The Garcias, struggling with cultural differences in their blended household, found common ground through a workshop on celebrating diverse family histories. The Patels, dealing with the challenges of a long-distance step-parent relationship, developed strategies for maintaining connections across miles and time zones. On the final day of the retreat, as families prepared to return to their everyday lives, Thomas stood before the group to deliver a closing address. Looking out at the sea of faces, some tear-stained, others beaming with newfound hope, he felt a profound sense of purpose. "When I lost Emily," Thomas began, his voice steady despite the emotion welling up inside him, "I thought my life was over. The pain was so all-consuming that I couldn't imagine ever finding meaning or joy again. But standing here today, seeing the connections you've all forged, the progress you've made, I realize that Emily's spirit lives on in every family we help, in every child who feels seen and heard, in every parent who learns to navigate these complex relationships with grace and understanding." As he continued to speak, Thomas noticed Dr. Rodriguez standing at the back of the room, a proud smile on her face. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Thomas felt a surge of gratitude for the twist of fate that had brought her into his life. Without her guidance and support, he might never have found the strength to transform his pain into purpose. The success of the first Emily's Light retreat led to many more. As word spread about the Foundation's work, requests for similar programs poured in from across the country. Thomas and Dr. Rodriguez found themselves traveling extensively, bringing their message of hope and healing to communities far and wide. One particularly memorable trip took them to a small town in the Midwest, where a recent tragedy eerily similar to Emily's had rocked the community. A teenage girl had taken her own life, leaving behind a journal detailing her struggles to fit into her new blended family. The girl's father, consumed by guilt and grief, had reached out to the Emily Bradshaw Foundation in desperation. As Thomas stood before the grieving community, sharing his story and the lessons he had learned, he felt Emily's presence more strongly than ever. In the tear-filled eyes of the townspeople, he saw the same pain and confusion that had once consumed him. But he also saw something else, a glimmer of hope, a willingness to learn and grow from this tragedy. The workshop that followed was one of the most intense Thomas had ever led. Raw emotions filled the room as families shared their fears, their regrets, their desperate desire to do better. Thomas and Dr. Rodriguez worked tirelessly, guiding discussions, mediating conflicts, and providing the tools these families needed to begin healing. By the end of the week-long program, the transformation in the community was palpable. Families who had been torn apart by grief and misunderstanding were taking the first tentative steps towards reconciliation. The father of the girl who had taken her life found solace in connecting with other parents who understood his pain. And perhaps most importantly, a dialogue had been opened. People were talking about the challenges of blended families, breaking the silence that too often allowed problems to fester. As Thomas and Dr. Rodriguez prepared to leave the town, they were approached by a group of local counselors and community leaders. Inspired by the Foundation's work, they had decided to establish an ongoing support program for blended families in their area. It was a small step, but one that filled Thomas with immense satisfaction. This was Emily's legacy in action, one community at a time, one family at a time, creating ripples of change that would continue long after he and Dr. Rodriguez had gone. The work was emotionally draining, often forcing Thomas to confront his own unresolved feelings about Emily's death and his relationship with Vanessa. There were nights when he would return to his hotel room, emotionally exhausted, the weight of others' pain compounding his own. In these moments, he would often find himself reaching for his phone, seeking the calm reassurance of Dr. Rodriguez's voice. Over time, Thomas and Amelia's relationship had deepened beyond that of colleagues or even friends. They had seen each other at their most vulnerable, had shared in the triumphs and setbacks of their work. Thomas found in Amelia a kindred spirit, someone who understood the depth of his loss, but who also challenged him to keep moving forward. It was during one such late-night call, after a particularly grueling day of workshops, that Thomas realized his feelings for Amelia had evolved into something more. The realization both excited and terrified him. The guilt he felt at the idea of finding happiness after Emily's death was overwhelming. "Amelia," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I think I'm falling in love with you." The silence that followed felt eternal. When Amelia finally spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. "Oh, Thomas," she said softly, "I've been falling in love with you too. But are we ready for this? Are you ready?" It was a question Thomas had been asking himself for months. Was it a betrayal of Emily's memory to open his heart to love again? Would allowing himself to be happy somehow diminish the tragedy of what had happened? As if reading his thoughts, Amelia continued, "Thomas, loving again doesn't mean forgetting Emily. It doesn't erase the pain of what happened. But I think Emily would want you to be happy, to live fully, to love again." Tears streamed down Thomas's face as he listened to Amelia's words. He knew she was right. Emily, with her vibrant spirit and boundless capacity for love, would never have wanted him to close himself off from happiness. "You're right," he said, his voice growing stronger. "Emily would want me to live, to love. And Amelia, I do love you. You've helped me find purpose again, helped me turn my pain into something positive. I want to see where this journey takes us." Their relationship blossomed slowly, both of them acutely aware of the delicate balance they needed to maintain between their personal feelings and their professional work. They agreed to keep their romantic involvement separate from the Foundation, not wanting to detract from the important work they were doing. As Thomas allowed himself to open up to love again, he found that it didn't diminish his memories of Emily or lessen the impact of her loss. Instead, it gave him new strength to continue the work of the foundation, to keep Emily's legacy alive in a way that honored her spirit and helped others. The Emily Bradshaw Foundation continued to grow and evolve. In addition to the Emily's Light retreats and community workshops, they began to develop educational programs for schools, helping teachers and counselors identify signs of distress in children from blended families. One of their most successful initiatives was a peer support program for teenagers. Inspired by Emily's own experiences, the program paired teens from blended families with trained peer mentors who could relate to their struggles. The impact was profound, giving young people a safe space to express their feelings and work through their challenges. As the years passed, Thomas watched with pride as the foundation's influence spread. He saw families heal, communities come together, and lives change for the better. And through it all, Emily's spirit remained at the heart of everything they did. On what would have been Emily's 25th birthday, Thomas stood before a crowd gathered for the opening of a new wing at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, dedicated to young artists. The Emily Bradshaw Gallery would showcase works by emerging talents, providing a platform for voices that might otherwise go unheard. As Thomas prepared to give his speech, he felt a familiar presence at his side. Amelia squeezed his hand gently, her silent support giving him strength. He looked out at the gathered crowd, artists, teachers, families who had been helped by the foundation, and supporters who had been moved by Emily's story. Emily once told me that art was her way of making sense of the world. Thomas began, his voice strong and clear. She said that when she painted, she felt like she could create order out of chaos, beauty out of pain. In the years since her death, I've come to understand what she meant. He paused, his eyes scanning the room, taking in the faces of those whose lives had been touched by Emily's story and the work of the foundation. Through the foundation, through all of you who have supported our mission, we've managed to create something meaningful out of our tragedy. We've turned our pain into purpose, our loss into a legacy that will continue to touch lives for generations to come. Thomas gestured to the gallery behind him, where Emily's paintings hung alongside works by young artists from around the world. This gallery is more than just a showcase for art. It's a testament to the power of creativity to heal, to connect, and to inspire. It's a space where young voices can be heard, where difficult truths can be expressed, and where beauty can emerge from even the darkest of experiences. As he continued his speech, Thomas felt a profound sense of peace wash over him. The pain of Emily's loss would never fully fade, but it had been tempered by time and by the knowledge that her story had made a difference in the world. Emily's life was cut tragically short, Thomas said, his voice thick with emotion. But her spirit lives on in every family we've helped, in every child who's found their voice through art, in every act of kindness and understanding that ripples out from the work we do. He turned to Amelia, drawing strength from her presence. None of this would have been possible without the support of so many incredible people. Dr. Amelia Rodriguez, whose wisdom and compassion have guided our work from the beginning. The countless volunteers, therapists, and educators who have given their time and expertise to our programs. And of course, all of you who have shared your own stories, who have had the courage to face your challenges and work towards healing. As Thomas concluded his speech, a young artist stepped forward to unveil the centerpiece of the new gallery, a collaborative mural created by teenagers who had participated in the Foundation's programs. The vibrant canvas told a story of pain, resilience, and hope, echoing themes from Emily's own work, while showcasing the unique perspectives of a new generation of artists. The crowd gasped as the mural was revealed. It was a powerful piece, spanning nearly an entire wall of the gallery. At its center was a tree, its roots deep and sprawling, its branches reaching towards a sky filled with swirling colors and abstract shapes. Upon closer inspection, one could see that the tree's bark was composed of hundreds of tiny faces, each one representing a child or family touched by the Foundation's work. The branches of the tree bore fruit of various shapes and colors, symbolizing the diverse outcomes and growth experienced by those who had found help and healing through the Emily Bradshaw Foundation. Woven throughout the entire piece were delicate strands of gold, a subtle but powerful reminder of the lasting impact of Emily's legacy. As the audience moved closer to examine the mural, Thomas noticed a young girl standing slightly apart from the crowd, her eyes fixed on the painting. There was something in her stance, in the intensity of her gaze, that reminded him powerfully of Emily. He made his way over to her, Amelia following close behind. "What do you think of the mural?" Thomas asked gently, crouching down to the girl's eye level. The girl turned to him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "It's beautiful," she said softly, "and sad, but hopeful too, like how I feel sometimes." Thomas felt his heart constrict. "I understand," he said. "Can you tell me your name?" "Lily," the girl replied. "Lily Johnson." With a start, Thomas realized who she was, the young daughter from the very first Emily's Light Retreat. He looked up, scanning the crowd, and saw Mark and Sarah Johnson approaching, their faces a mixture of pride and concern. "Lily has become quite the artist," Mark said as he reached them, placing a gentle hand on his daughter's shoulder. "She insisted on coming today, said she needed to see Emily's paintings in person." Thomas stood, extending his hand to Mark. The change in the man was remarkable. Gone was the haunted look in his eyes, replaced by a quiet strength and contentment. "It's wonderful to see you all again," Thomas said warmly. "How have you been?" As the Johnsons shared their story, the challenges they'd faced, the progress they'd made, the bonds they'd forged as a family, Thomas felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Here was living proof that the work they were doing mattered, that lives were being changed for the better. Lily, who had been listening quietly, suddenly spoke up. "Mr. Bradshaw," she said, her voice small but determined, "I want to volunteer with the foundation when I'm older. I want to help other kids like me." Thomas felt tears prick his eyes. He knelt down again, meeting Lily's gaze. "That's a wonderful goal, Lily. And you know what? You're already helping. Your art, your story, they're an inspiration to others who might be going through tough times." As the evening wore on, Thomas found himself overwhelmed by the outpouring of support and gratitude from those in attendance. People he had never met approached him, sharing how Emily's story and the Foundation's work had impacted their lives. There were tears, yes, but also laughter, hope, and a palpable sense of community. One encounter particularly stood out. A woman in her early 30s approached Thomas, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "Mr. Bradshaw," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "I don't know if you remember me. My name is Rachel Chun. I was Emily's classmate." Thomas felt his breath catch. Of course he remembered Rachel. She had been one of Emily's closest friends, a constant presence in their home before everything fell apart. "Rachel," he said warmly, taking her hands in his. "Of course I remember you. How are you?" Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "I'm doing well, Mr. Bradshaw. I wanted to thank you for everything you've done with the Foundation. I've been following your work, and it's helped me make sense of what happened, to find some peace." As Rachel shared how the Foundation's programs had helped her process her own grief and guilt over Emily's death, Thomas was struck by the far-reaching impact of their work. It wasn't just blended families who were finding healing through Emily's legacy. It was everyone who had been touched by her life and death. The conversation with Rachel stirred up memories for Thomas, both painful and sweet. He found himself sharing stories of Emily that he hadn't told in years, remembering her laugh, her passion for art, the way her face would light up when she was excited about a new project. As he spoke, Thomas realized that the sharp pain that had once accompanied these memories had softened. The grief was still there, a constant companion, but it no longer overwhelmed him. Instead, it fueled his determination to continue the work of the Foundation, to ensure that Emily's spirit lived on in every life they touched. The evening began to wind down, guests slowly filtering out of the gallery. Thomas found a quiet moment to stand alone before one of Emily's paintings, a self-portrait she had completed just months before her death. In it, she gazed out at the viewer with a mixture of vulnerability and strength, her eyes seeming to hold secrets yet untold. As he studied the painting, Thomas felt a presence beside him. He turned to find Amelia, her eyes also fixed on Emily's portrait. Without a word, she slipped her hand into his, offering silent support and understanding. "She would be proud, you know," Amelia said softly, "of you, of the foundation, of all the lives you've changed in her name." Thomas nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. He squeezed Amelia's hand, grateful beyond words for her presence in his life. As they stood there, surrounded by Emily's art and the tangible results of her legacy, Thomas reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. The pain, the grief, the moments of despair, they were all part of the tapestry of his life now. But so too were the moments of joy, of triumph, of lives changed and hearts healed. He thought of Vanessa, still serving her sentence, and the complex emotions her memory stirred. The anger had faded over time, replaced by a sort of sad understanding. Her actions were unforgivable, but Thomas had come to recognize the broken, jealous woman behind them. In a way, Vanessa's tragedy had become part of the Foundation's mission too, a stark reminder of the importance of addressing the complex emotions that can arise in blended families before they spiral out of control. As the last of the guests departed and the gallery grew quiet, Thomas took one final walk through the space. Each painting, each sculpture, each piece of Emily's legacy on display seemed to whisper to him, reminding him of the power of art to heal, to connect, to make sense of the senseless. He paused before the collaborative mural, taking in its sprawling beauty one last time. In that moment, Thomas felt a profound sense of peace wash over him. The journey had been long and painful, marked by unimaginable loss and struggle, but it had also been a journey of healing, of growth, and of finding purpose in the darkest of circumstances. As he turned to leave, Thomas caught a glimpse of his reflection in one of the gallery windows. The man looking back at him was older, yes, marked by the years and the weight of his experiences. But there was also a strength in his eyes, a quiet determination that spoke of battles fought and won, of a spirit tempered by adversity but not broken by it. Thomas realized that all of this, was Emily's true legacy. Not just the art on the walls or the programs that bore her name, but the lives changed, the families healed, the communities brought together. In transforming his own pain into a force for good, Thomas had ensured that Emily's spirit would live on, touching lives and inspiring change for generations to come. As he and Amelia left the gallery hand in hand, Thomas felt a sense of anticipation for the work that still lay ahead. There would be more families to help, more communities to reach, more lives to touch in Emily's name. The road ahead would not always be easy, but Thomas knew now that he had the strength to face whatever challenges might come. In the cool night air, with the city lights twinkling around them like earthbound stars, Thomas paused for a moment. He looked up at the sky, imagining Emily's smile beaming down on him. "Thank you," he whispered, his words carried away on the gentle breeze. "Thank you for everything." And with that, Thomas Bradshaw turned towards home, towards the future, carrying with him the enduring legacy of a life lost too soon but forever remembered. In the end, Emily's art had indeed created beauty from pain, hope from despair, and a lasting impact that would be her true masterpiece. A masterpiece painted not just in colors on canvas, but in lives touched and hearts healed across the world. Yendi,